The wind howled through the empty streets, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked pavement and something else, something unplaceable, yet deeply unsettling. Nathan Carter pulled his coat tighter around him as he walked briskly toward his apartment. The city felt different tonight. Quieter. Too quiet. As if the world itself was holding its breath. Nathan was an ordinary man living an ordinary life, or at least he had been until tonight. Earlier that day, he had been presented with a choice. A simple one, or so it seemed at the time. But as he turned the key to his apartment door and stepped inside, the air in the room felt heavier, charged with an energy that sent a shiver down his spine. His phone buzzed. A single message. "You shouldn't have chosen that." His breath hitched. He didn't recognize the number. His fingers trembled slightly as he typed back. "Who is this?" No response. Nathan shook his head, trying to dismiss the unease creeping up his spine. It was probably some prank. He tossed his phone onto the counter and walked into the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. He needed to clear his head. Maybe he was just imagining things. But as he turned to head to his bedroom, he saw it. The hallway mirror. It was subtle at first, a small, almost imperceptible delay in his reflection. The kind of thing one might miss if they weren't paying attention. But Nathan was. He stopped, staring at himself. He lifted a hand. His reflection followed. He tilted his head. The mirror did the same. And then, for just a fraction of a second, his reflection smiled. Nathan hadn't. A chill ran through him. His breath quickened. He stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. It had to be a trick of the light. Maybe he was overtired. He turned away, shaking his head. Then came the whisper.
"So soft.
So close. You made the wrong choice, Nathan." His blood turned to ice. He spun around, but the hallway was empty. Only the mirror remained, its surface now rippling ever so slightly, as though it were no longer glass, but water. Nathan took another step back, nearly stumbling over the rug. His phone buzzed again. Run. A sharp knock at the door made him jump. His pulse thundered in his ears. Slowly, he turned toward the door, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Another knock, louder this time, more urgent. He hesitated. Every instinct in his body screamed at him not to open it. But something else, some inexplicable pull, urged him forward. He reached out, fingers hovering over the handle. Another message. "Don't answer it." His breath hitched. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He was caught between two choices. Open the door, or listen to the warning. Every choice matters. Nathan swallowed hard. He reached for the door. And he chose wrong. Nathan's hand hovered over the doorknob, his breath shaky. The warning message on his phone echoed in his mind. Don't answer it. But curiosity, fear, something irrational urged him forward. His fingers brushed the cold metal handle. With a deep breath, he turned it. The door swung open. No one was there. The hallway stretched before him, dimly lit by the flickering fluorescent lights overhead. It was empty, eerily so. Even the usual hum of the city beyond the windows seemed muted, as though the world itself had gone silent. Nathan exhaled, half in relief, half in unease. Maybe it had just been some kid playing a prank. He stepped back inside, shaking his head. And then, the whisper came again. Too late. The door slammed shut behind him with a deafening bang. The lights flickered violently before going out entirely, plunging the apartment into darkness. Nathan spun around, heart hammering in his chest. His phone screen was the only light in the room, casting an eerie glow over his trembling hands. Another message appeared. You invited it in. His breath caught in his throat. A sound, soft at first, like fabric dragging across the floor, slithered through the apartment. It came from the hallway. Nathan turned slowly. The darkness seemed deeper there, suffocating, as though it had taken on a shape of its own. And from within that void, a pair of eyes gleamed. Wide, hollow, watching. Nathan staggered back, his pulse roaring in his ears. His fingers fumbled against the wall, desperately searching for the light switch. The soft sound grew closer, accompanied by a slow, rhythmic creaking, like footsteps, but distorted, unnatural. His fingers finally found the switch. He flipped it. Nothing. The darkness remained. A shiver crawled down his spine. He grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, landing on the hallway. It was empty. No eyes. No movement. Nothing. Nathan exhaled sharply, his breath ragged. Maybe he was losing his mind. Maybe it was stress, exhaustion, anything but reality. He turned back toward the living room and froze. A figure stood there, tall, motionless, its body wrapped in tattered, blackened cloth, its face obscured by a deep hood. Nathan couldn't breathe. His body refused to move. The figure raised a hand. Long, spindly fingers unfolded from beneath the sleeve, each one far too thin, too elongated to be human. It pointed at him. Nathan's phone buzzed violently in his hand. Another message appeared. Run. The figure took a step forward. Nathan bolted. He crashed through the apartment, nearly knocking over a chair as he stumbled toward the bedroom. He slammed the door shut behind him and pressed his back against it, his chest heaving. Silence. His pulse pounded in his ears, his body trembling. A minute passed, then another. He dared to hope. Maybe it was gone. Maybe. A soft knock. Right behind him. Nathan's breath hitched. He could feel it now, the presence on the other side of the door, pressing against it, waiting. And then came the voice. You shouldn't have opened the door, Nathan. His stomach dropped. The voice wasn't deep or monstrous. It wasn't an inhuman growl or a distorted shriek. It was his own. Nathan stumbled back, his legs nearly giving out beneath him. His phone buzzed again. It's inside you now. His hands trembled. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. And then, in the mirror across the room, his reflection blinked. But Nathan hadn't. The figure was no longer in the apartment, because now it was in him. Nathan stood frozen, his breath coming in shallow, panicked gasps. His reflection stared back at him from the bedroom mirror, unblinking, expressionless, wrong. His mind screamed at him to look away, to run, to do anything but stand there. But something held him still, a force beyond his control. The reflection smirked. Nathan's chest tightened. His own face, but not his. The eyes in the mirror were darker, sunken, as if something ancient peered through them. Then it moved. Not a normal movement, not a twitch of the eye or a shift of posture. The reflection stepped forward. Nathan's breath hitched. That was impossible. Glass didn't work like that. But the thing in the mirror didn't care about what was possible. It lifted a hand and pressed it against the glass. A faint ripple spread across the surface like disturbed water. Nathan stumbled back. His phone buzzed again, still clutched in his trembling hands. Get out. Now. His legs refused to move. His mind refused to process what was happening. Then the reflection spoke. You made the wrong choice. The voice was his own, yet layered, distorted, like a chorus of whispers speaking in unison. Nathan squeezed his eyes shut. This isn't real. This isn't real. He forced himself to turn away, fumbling for the doorknob, desperate to escape. His fingers wrapped around it, twisting hard. Locked. His pulse spiked. He hadn't locked it. Then, behind him, the sound of glass shattering. Nathan spun around just in time to see his reflection crawl out of the mirror. It wasn't just stepping through. It was pulling itself out, its fingers bending at unnatural angles as they gripped the jagged edges of the broken mirror. Nathan let out a strangled gasp as he stumbled backward, his body slamming against the locked door. The thing, his reflection, stood up fully, dusting itself off as if shedding an old skin. It cocked its head, studying him with eerie fascination. Then it grinned. You're free now, it whispered. I'll take it from here. Nathan shook his head violently. No, this wasn't happening. The reflection took a step forward. Nathan lunged for the lamp on his nightstand and hurled it at the thing. The glass shattered against its chest, but it didn't even flinch. Instead, it sighed. Violence? Come on, Nathan. You know that never solves anything. Then, with blinding speed, it closed the distance between them. Nathan barely had time to react before cold hands wrapped around his throat. Pain exploded in his skull as the thing lifted him effortlessly off the ground, pressing him against the door. Darkness swam at the edges of his vision. His phone buzzed one last time. Through the haze of suffocation, his blurry gaze flickered toward the screen. One final message. Your choices are no longer yours. Nathan tried to fight back, but his strength was slipping. His body grew heavy. His vision tunneled. And then, everything went black. Days later, Nathan woke up to the sound of his phone ringing. His body felt different, lighter, as though a terrible weight had been lifted from him. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom window. Had it all been a nightmare? His hands trembled as he picked up the phone. Hello. His voice came out steady, normal. A pause. Then, from the other end, a familiar voice spoke. His own voice. How's my life treating you, Nathan? The line went dead. Nathan's blood turned to ice. His reflection in the mirror gave him one last smirk. He had chosen the wrong path. And now, something else was living his life. The moral of every choice matters, but he chose the wrong 1 inch is that every decision we make carries consequences, and some choices can never be undone. Ignoring warnings, acting on impulse, or succumbing to curiosity without caution can lead to irreversible outcomes. Nathan's fate serves as a chilling reminder that not all doors should be opened, and sometimes, what we invite into our lives, knowingly or unknowingly, can take everything from us.